General Protocol Spaces, Banking on Freedom.
All right. Let's get started. So, episode 10 of N of General Bull. Let's see what's going on in the Bitcoin Cash ecosystem with definitely with no exaggeration, one of the most prolific developers and builders, not only of infrastructure and internal things, but apps and things that actual users can use, from bottom to top. Mathieu, so welcome to General Bull. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, thank you for that introduction. It was very kind of you. I'm glad to be here. Glad to be here as a guest.
Yeah, I know. We've worked with you, Mathieu. I'm not maybe a lot of people don't know that, but we've worked together, and it's always been a pleasure to work with you. Very easy to work with and talented developer, despite your young age, already quite accomplished, and education as well, right? Your focus is not only development. Maybe do you want to quickly give a little background for yourself that people may not know?
Oh yeah, so I come from an economics background. It was my studies here at university. And then when I graduated from university at the Master of Economics, then I could join you guys at General Protocols for I think 2 months. So I was like a junior developer in the sense that programming was more of a side thing that was self-taught. And I feel like I learned a lot by just being in a team, and I could work like semi-independently, but still just with the existing tooling that you guys had set up. It was my first time working on a big TypeScript project alone. And then, so I feel like I learned a lot there after university. And then my timing was kind of perfect because I was for a long time watching the Bitcoin Cash upgrade, and then the native introspection upgrade happened, and there was a bunch more possibility for smart contract developers. But then when I really started to get involved on my own was right before the cash tokens upgrade. So 1 year ago, actually, when the chipnet got upgraded for cash tokens. So then I could already play around with the cash token stuff. Actually, I used the tooling built by Pat, so the main.js library, which made it really easy to get started. So Pat built that upgraded the library for cash tokens. And then I saw that nobody had taken the opportunity to build something with it. So I started playing around with it by making a web wallet. And that is what has grown into Cashonize today. So I feel like my timing was kind of lucky in that regard, because now there's a ton of opportunity. Just saying that there was
so much opportunity, but it's in the reverse also, right? Bitcoin Cash ecosystem is so lucky that the timing worked out, that this economist finished their studies and is like, I'm going to use this perfect fit of economics and desire to build and technical capability to build this thing that evolved into like a major piece of BCH technology and BCH infrastructure. That was amazing timing for BCH itself. So I think everybody really appreciates that timing from the other direction as well.
Yeah, I think with Cashonize, the main thing I got to do was advertise to all other builders, well, this is interesting and this is how I'm doing it, because now we're seeing like a handful of wallets already. And I know of at least 2 other people that are building their own wallets. So I think we'll have like a thriving wallet ecosystem. But the main thing I'm proud of is nudging Roscoe to get working on CashCrypt, like to upgrade CashCrypt for cash tokens as soon as possible. And that's what many projects have now used. First the BitCuts, which were really early, I think a few weeks after the cash tokens upgrade. And then now I recently used it myself with the Cash Ninjas NFT mint. But then in between there was also Fex.cash and TopSwap, of course. Yeah, so just a bunch of different projects that have utilized the CashCrypt.
Yes, and again, from the other side of that picture, I really appreciate that you took a really active role in getting CashCrypt and Roscoe motivated again. I was very happy to see all that going. You guys together are a pretty superpower. That duo is pretty awesome. I was actually hoping that he might be able to join us, but he's still traveling right now. He's in the middle of some heavy travel, so I don't think it would make sense for him. But if he happens to show up, I would love to get him on here and talk about CashScript too. Yeah, that's right. You've been instrumental in the CashScript upgrades. To what degree were you following and really into the chips that led to the introspection and then cash tokens? Those two specifically. Like, to what degree were you following and interested in those as they built up?
Yeah, I would say I was following very closely because I was already like very interested in the smart contract stuff when everything needed to happen with the hacky introspection way. So yeah, I tried to understand all the contracts back then, like Macenas, and there were not too many, and of course any hedge. And the nice thing about CashCrypt was that the hack actually got abstracted away. So as a smart contract dev, you didn't need to understand how it worked really, but I wanted to understand. So I just played around with all the examples, and I asked some questions, and people were very kind to help me out. And then slowly, so I was monitoring for a long time. I became involved in BCH in 2018. And I would say that I've been like very closely involved ever since, but I wasn't a builder yet. So,
slowly. I like how you said slowly. It's like went from graduating to and I looked at all these examples, and now I'm the one writing the playground that everybody else uses to make contracts. You're the one who made the playground, right? The main developer of it, or was that mostly Roscoe?
Roscoe started it at a hackathon. But then he didn't touch it anymore. So it had the core features, but it was still missing a lot of stuff to make it a nice developer experience. So I got to polish it when I had the vacation. I just took a week off to just work on the playground. Yeah, so that was fun. So I got to do the finishing. It's if you go to cashcrypt.org, it's linked there now. So there's a link to the playground, and I think the subdomain is playground.cashcrypt.org.
Okay, there you go, cashcrypt.org. Go there and check out that playground. If you're a developer, it's fantastic. It's super useful to be able to quickly grasp like what a smart contract means, because a lot of people coming from EVM, Ethereum world will look at CashCrypt and maybe think, oh, okay, I get it, but they really don't get UTXO. They really don't grok it until you do something like the CashCrypt playground and you get to understand, oh, okay, right. Each coin is a contract. Okay. It takes a little bit of reorganizing your thoughts to understand it. And I think the playground is probably one of the best places to do that.
Yeah, just overall, the CashCrypt documentation is very good. So I was lucky with that as well. So I could get it and didn't know pretty much anything, but then I learned like JavaScript by getting started with CashCrypt. So I needed Node installed to run an NPM to run some of the programs, and that was like my foot in the door. So I just started by running the examples as described in documentation, and then it explains itself pretty much.
Yeah, it does. As long as you are willing to let go of the account ideas. Actually, that's something I've asked other people who have done EVM stuff here, like Giviz, who was on previously. I'd like to know what's your opinion on the development that you do in EVM with Solidity or other tools, and then the current state today of CashCrypt, like not where we were, but where we are today. What's the big differences? What's the difficult part of coming from EVM into the UTXO and cash tokens and the BCH VM? Like, what's the hard part of that, and what's the easy part?
Yeah, so I don't actually come from the EVM. So I started with CashCrypt was my introduction to smart contracts. So I never wrote the Solidity contract myself.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I never really tried. So the only thing I'm doing now is I'm taking a look at Solidity contracts to understand how they are doing stuff to learn for CashCrypt. But I've never like deployed a contract on ETH myself.
A native son of UTXO. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
So,
and also not even for smart Bitcoin Cash. So it's not like there I got involved with the. I was just working on the bridging stuff, but I didn't get involved in the smart contract side of things. And one thing that I do notice from Solidity, so this earlier today I had a meeting with Roscoe as well to work on like a pair coding session to work on CashCrypt. And this edition was special because Pat joined as well, because Pat is now has been funded to work on debugging tools. So I was very glad that he joined our meeting. So, and this is something where we're also looking at Solidity for. So we're looking how does Solidity do like errors and how do they do console logs, because we want to emulate them in this regard. Like we will have a two-way mapping between the source code and then the compiled code.
that will be so useful.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
God.
So we discussed this with Pat, and it's looking good. He has thought about this very well. And then because currently, as you from general protocols will probably be the most familiar with this, that it's a real headache to do smart contract debugging currently, because there's no real tooling. There's the BitAlt IDE, and there used to be MEEP, but that's it. So you need to go lower level to do the debugging, and you have even no clue where the error was. It just says transaction rejected. Sometimes it says not enough funds, or most of the time it just says check verify failed or something to that extent. Yeah, which can
or
be
depending
like
on what node you talk to, it'll tell you something different. You never know exactly what message you're going to get.
Yeah, so now if it can say, validation failed at line 5, that will be way easier for smart contract developers.
So great. Yes.
Yeah, and then it will throw the error that you placed in your CashCrypt file. So it can be like for example, wrong signature or something like that. Or,
man, this is so foundational. This stuff is so important to have. I love it.
And then the other thing we're looking at Solidity for is for the library stuff. So that's what Roscoe and I are focusing on. So Pat is mainly doing, he's working on the debugging tools. Roscoe and I are working on the library, so you can make kind of functions or macros that you can use in your smart contract. And this way you can have abstract functions that you can give a name and that take parameters and that do the same typing as the rest of CashCrypt. So that, for example, take 2 integers, and at the end of the little program it returns 1 integer. And this type of thing will be very handy with complex stuff. For example, the fix.cash developers, they already wanted something like this to play around with the more complex mathematics for their decks. So this way they didn't need to have the same code all over their contract. They just can abstract this out and give this a nice name. And so that's what Roscoe and I are working on.
That's fantastic. There was also the library aspect, right? Because we didn't say it here, but the CashCrypt team was funded in a Flipstarter recently to do some expansions. One of them was the library aspects of CashCrypt, right? And one of them, what was the other main part of it?
The other part we already finished. It was changes to the SDK, like an advanced transaction builder, which is it's called advanced, but it's not actually harder to use. I think it just makes it requires you to select your UTXOs yourself and handle change outputs. So you need to be more precise, but most of the time with smart contracts you want to be very precise anyways.
Yes.
And because of the way we built the transaction, like we designed the transaction builder, you can also do other types of smart or like multiple smart contracts in the inputs, or even no smart contracts in the inputs and only pay to public key hash inputs. So it's very flexible. It's like a generalized transaction builder, which happens to work very well with CashCrypt inputs.
Yeah, very, very well. That's great. And how's the interaction with all of these? Because now you've got 2 or 3 things, different things going on at the same time, the different features that you're developing. Is that getting complicated, or is it still pretty straightforward because it's well made at the base level?
Yeah, so for the transaction builder, that's already finished, and that will not interact with the future things. But the source mapping, what Pat is working on for the debugging tools, would interact with the libraries, right? Because if you make a source map, but then you have imports, then the source map needs to also work with imports. So this is still something we are evolving. We're starting with the easy case where there are no use of libraries, but Pat needs to make sure that his source map is flexible enough so it takes into account libraries from the start. So if you end up using libraries, that the debugging also, the debug tooling should also work with the libraries, of course.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. That's really great to hear that Pat is working with you guys, and you guys invited him to talk with you and work together on it. I love to hear that. That's so good to see people really getting together and working on things together instead of in just little individual silos.
It's also easier to talk things out if there's a disagreement on how things should be implemented or designed. It's way easier,
and you catch it earlier. Yeah, there's just so many benefits to, you don't want to overdo communication, but it's hard to overdo communication and sometimes.
Yeah, I think we're in BCH, we're most likely at the other end of the spectrum where we don't have enough cooperation and talking between different people who build on the similar stuff.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, I've been happy with the native wallet group. It's a somewhat contentious topic. You know, we've talked about it several times on this show. And then, of course, you are very well knowledgeable about the whole setup and topic. But it's a kind of contentious topic. But at the same time, there's a lot of discussion and people talking about different ways to do things. And I'm still very happy with everything in the BCH ecosystem. BitcoinCashResearch.org, where everybody discusses topics, argues, fights, agrees, disagrees, whatever. And it's all still, I mean, maybe like you said, communication could be more, but overall it's very positive and constructive and going in a good direction, I think.
Yeah, so one thing for the native wallet is I also remember when I was starting out Cashonize and saying I would be implementing cash tokens. I remember that there was some, I think, confusion in communication because you said, how would this do like cash tokens with all the specific app metadata and how would it keep state? But yeah, what I meant or what I actually implemented was these kind of general fungible tokens and general NFTs, like very simple collectibles. But you're right, for a native wallet, we will need app-specific information like state that's unique to a smart contract and that the wallet needs to remember. And you need, like we currently have the wallet connect specification, but to move beyond that, to have some kind of contract templates where the wallets can recognize which smart contract is being used and which parameters, or if it's even safe at all to send money to an unknown address, things like that.
It's hard to explain it without getting into the weeds, but something that started off contentious, maybe due to bad communication on my part, I don't know, but not my part, but like, just the topic in general, because there's different ways to approach it. But I think it's going in a good direction where everybody understands that there's a lot of room for improvement and there's also steps along the way, and both of those are okay. And it's okay to keep improving and have a high expectation for the long term.
Definitely.
I wanted to say on a different topic, going back to your education, that it's pretty interesting. In some industries, you get people who are builders who have an interest in certain things, builders who have an interest in a particular thing, like that matchup, and economics and software development is such a weird and cool mix for me to see in Bitcoin Cash and I guess kind of crypto in general, but especially in Bitcoin Cash, where there's quite a lot of people who have some kind of economics background and it's really important to them. And they're like very serious about money, because when I go out in the general, conversation with people in my life, there's very few people who are like, yes, money is very important. They So it's nice to have people who have both of those, right? Software development and building and wanting to make products, and also they think money and finance and financial systems are very important also. So yeah, again, just to reiterate, I think we're really lucky that you decided to work on Bitcoin Cash. And that's what I wanted to ask is, what is it that made you, who have an economics background and some level of building and technical experience or expertise or talent, what made you interested in to choose Bitcoin Cash over the many other options that are available?
Oh, so how I ended up in the Bitcoin Cash camp. It was 2017 when I joined like the cryptocurrency space. So it was a very hectic time to get interested, because there was a whole Segwit and Segwit2x and a split and Bcash, and then there was also the bull run. So everything was going up, and BTC had high fees. So the first coin I actually bought and used was Ethereum, but then Ethereum was also having problems. So then I thought Litecoin is kind of interesting. And I was a student at the time, so I was never going to pay $50 transaction fees. So yeah,
right?
Anywhere near that, yeah. And Ethereum was always interesting to me because of Vitalik and the whole different vision. Because in 2017 there was not really the negatives that we see today. It was still more the internet computer or the beginnings of ICO, but DeFi wasn't the term yet, and especially the ecosystem on Ethereum that we see now with all the layer 2s, it totally was not developed yet. So then after I started to learn more, I learned about the Bitcoin history and about the block size debate, and then it just made sense to me that Bitcoin BTC is on a very nonsensical long-term path. And I think that has been proven right. So now their main innovation is an accident, which is an ordinals. And besides that, there's every day there's seemingly another thing of bad news about the Lightning Network and other concepts about covenants or sidechain proposals. They don't go anywhere. So yeah, this was clear to me from looking at Bitcoin.
Wow.
And I guess I just never got involved in the ETH community at all, because I could have, but I just thought that it was, for example, by hearing Roger Ver speak, things like that, I got really passionate about the Bitcoin mission as originally intended.
Right,
and not in a constrained vision, but in maximizing what Bitcoin could be. And I feel that's the Bitcoin Cash experiment. With
the old original maximalism, right? Like, okay, let's do everything. Yeah.
Yeah, let's see how far we can take this.
Okay, that's really interesting. So you came at it from kind of a rational decision making. There's these things available, but this has these problems. That's a possibility, but this is the one that lines up with what you were interested in, what you were excited about. That's really similar to my story too. On the later part of it, my early part was really simple, like, oh, let me get rich quick. But yeah, but then I later realized how important it was. Wow, okay, that's very interesting. I would love for more people to come in that way, right? But people who are interested and they see that there is actually a vehicle for this. Well, for me, it's permissionless money, a permissionless money for everyone, for as many people as possible to use. Is that kind of your approach? What it is that's interesting to you? How would you summarize what is it that is your goal, the original goal for you?
So I have kind of like a two-part answer. So I would also say that making it money is the end goal, having people use it as peer-to-peer cash, like having a separate economies. But then how do we get there is the obvious question. And I think to have like these network effects, what General Protocols is working on, you need stability solutions, and you need some already existing use cases that are not money to bootstrap the money network effect. So I think DeFi and all things related to it, where you have your native currency like BCH being traded and having a lot of liquidity by being traded against tokens, blockchain native assets. I think that's the way to go. So it's like short term, I think that's what we should be aiming for. Maybe digital products and then DeFi, because I think aiming for merchant adoption at this stage is kind of like self defeating. And if you've seen a few cycles of people trying to get adoption in the local area and then it's totally not being used or falling apart after the price crashes or the merchants being financially hurt or losing money on speculating or something like that, then you just get discouraged from trying the same thing over and over again. So I wouldn't focus on merchant adoption or using it as retail money right now. But I love the idea of having a counter economy where you try to buy as many goods and services, but then you need like-minded people who are already interested in BCH. So that for the places where most people live, that scale is very difficult.
That's a great answer. Yeah, not only where it wants to go, which it sounds like we're quite aligned there, but also how do you get there? And we're also quite aligned on that as well. You've got to make things that are useful for people, that provide actual utility. The summary I make for it is, for the old people like me who lived through the .com boom, you have to graduate from the pets.com era into the Amazon.com era, right? From random speculative just jumble of whatever is going on into actual products, platforms, and services that are useful to people. And yeah, that's what we're trying to do at General Protocols, and you're doing that as well, providing apps for people and things that are actually useful for them. And that comes in stages, right? In steps. So where do you think are the next steps on that, right? There's obviously speculation, right? That's the bottom of the barrel use case is speculation. But what do you see is coming next in that kind of evolution towards high utility?
Yeah, I would just, because I feel like the current cryptocurrency industry is kind of lost. Like if you look at the main narratives out there from the BTC camp, which is still the biggest, and then from the Ethereum side, I feel like we are not outputting, like we still have a message of freedom, but we are not united and not making sense we don't have a long-term vision, because our main projects like BTC and Ethereum, they simply don't scale. So I wish for BCH to have more of an impact in the cryptocurrency industry again, because we used to be at number 3 or number 4, at least in the top 10 based on market cap. And I find this quite a good metric just to measure the impact of a community and the importance in the industry. And now we're way down. So I hope with the cash token stuff, we had a great first half year. A great start of the cash tokens ecosystem, and I hope to see a comeback. So not only to have the current developers, but to see new talent joining, to see like a kind of exponential curve, not in the price per se, but in the growth of the community and of the people involved and people enthusiastic about it. But yeah, currently it's quite a hard time to build. Quite a hard time to build because of the bear market.
Yeah, so, the bear market makes everything quite painful. Yeah,
it's not just that, but also I think the broader market hasn't caught up. Is very far from catching up with what BCH is up to. Like when I look around, there are still media outlets out there who would just reprint stories from years ago that says, by the way, BCH is like BTC, but with 8 meg max block size. Oh, like wow, that was ancient. And other things like so what's up with the latest drama with CSW? Wow, that is also ancient. So a lot of them hasn't caught up with the latest things in BCH, and we could do better jobs like this Spaces and other.
Yeah, but I don't think you need to convince existing crypto outlets per se. So kind of like, I don't think Ethereum had a lot of posts written about them in Bitcoin Magazine, but probably they just started their own community with their own influencers and their own outlets. Yeah, and in BCH we used to have some outlets, but now our presence on platforms like if you just go on YouTube and you would search for information on cash tokens, there's very little, and especially very little that actually gets watched by people. So very, very little content that finds its way to an actual audience. But I think this is the main thing we can, where there's a big opportunity and where there's a need for people to step up and which can organically grow a lot. If there are more users, there will be a demand for content about just explaining how to work with stuff and what's new. But because we are so tiny, we have to do everything to catch up to a more healthy state.
And not only so tiny, but to segue, not to segue, but just to add on to that. So if anybody who's listening goes to, I put a link in the Twitter thread, flipstarter.cashonize.com. This is Matthew's current Flipstarter, where he's raging. He's doing crowdfunding for the project, for the wallet that Mathieu has made. And I think that is a point here that you guys are talking about, where there's so many things to be done, but the way things are done in general in the world is, there's a company, there's an organization, and they hire you and they pay you to do things, or they contract you and they pay you to do things. But when you're bootstrapping a new money system, which is its own commons, right? There's no central party that owns it or controls it. Who funds things, and where does the funding for things come from? How do you actually bootstrap all of the infrastructure? How do you bootstrap the first apps? How do you get investors to take huge risks is a difficult thing in itself, but then also the mindset of, hey, I see something that's very important. Well, it's too bad that nobody's doing that, right? Switching that mindset to, okay, this needs to be done, so I'm going to do it. And I'm going to go out and convince people that this is an important thing to be done and get funded. That's a huge step for a lot of people. So this is why I often say the number one thing not missing, but the hard thing that we need more of is entrepreneurs, people who are willing to say, this is an important thing and I see how to get it done. Let me go get it done. And I think you've been such a great example of that, Mathieu, of the entrepreneur spirit of just saying, this is a thing that needs to happen. I'm going to make it happen. Come with me, right? How did you come to that, right? How did you successfully fund several Flipstarters along the way? How has that happened for you?
Yeah, so the thing I'm most, for entrepreneurial, I think the best case to talk about was the Cashonize project. So I think one important point is to not start alone. So very helpful for me was to team up with Itachu, the artist, which helped me with the website and with all the promo and marketing, and with Josh Ellithorpe, which could take care of all the server technical stuff, so the backend, and I also helped with compiling the art and made the art engine open source. So one nice thing with the Cashonize project is that because this was an entrepreneurial endeavor, that we would get our funding from the mints of the NFTs. And then we could just open source all our tooling. So this way we could provide as much value as possible to the community, or like to the developer community and to future projects, but also not have to ask for money using a Flipstarter, but could just use this NFT mint as an opportunity to raise money for actually making it and spending the time developing all the tooling. So what we hope to see, and what we already were in talks with a few people, is people who are interested in using and extending our open source tooling to actually make an NFT mint on cash tokens themselves. So I'm very interested and excited to see how that will play out. And I hope with the Cash Ninjas, I think we minted just short of 1,500. I hope this mint will continue, because if our projects end up minting out, this would be a good sign of the health of the ecosystem. I would also, the funding would go to us for making the project in an entrepreneurial way. Because if the NFT projects on Bitcoin Cash don't really take off, then it's also a signal for other entrepreneurs to not really try the same, of course, right? If a project fails, it's a signal for others not to try the same. And if something is hugely successful, then others are quick to copy most of the time. So, and of course, especially when everything is open source. So I think in 1 week, someone who is good at reading docs and already is a developer, in 1 week it should be possible to set up your own NFT mint on Cash tokens if you already have the art. So first you have to, of course, prepare or commission the art or use AI to make some art. But assuming that you have the art with our tooling, I think a week would be reasonable to set it all up. So
interesting. So my approach to those has been something that probably wouldn't generally work, but I see it as, when I buy the Gurus or Cash Ninjas, I see it as exactly like you said, as funding something, like sending a signal, exactly as you said, sending a signal that, hey, this is important and this is worthwhile. And so, for example, with the Gurus, I especially liked the aspect of the Gurus, whoever you anonymous developers are out there, that they have the NFTs, which is fine. But then also which is also a provable thing, right? Like, hey, I bought these NFTs. I supported this project at the very beginning, before it was popular, right? I'm a total hipster for supporting BCH projects. But then it also has a utility, right? The prediction game that is coming, that they are building. It's not out yet, so don't want to get ahead of myself, but they say that they're building a prediction game. So I like that aspect, that there's actually going to be something you can use, that there's going to be something you can use money to do, not just the collectible aspect. So yeah, I don't know how that's going to work, but personally, I use it as a signal, exactly as you said, to say that, yes, this is valuable and this work is important.
Yeah, it will be cool to see on Cash tokens the first fungible tokens with some real use case. And for the Furu token, then it will be this prediction platform. But it will, be cool to see some other useful fungible tokens, because I started Doge Cash, and Doge Cash is it's not really useful. It was just on the Cash tokens launch day created as a meme. But currently, I find that the Cash tokens NFT ecosystem with TopSwap and with the Ninjas and with the Gurus and the BitCuts, the NFT ecosystem is actually more evolved than the fungible token ecosystem. So I'm thinking also along the lines of which steps would we take to build out this fungible token ecosystem? And is like ICO is a good way to do that, or is it a bad way? But then what kind of utility tokens, or like platform tokens, or maybe shares? Like what would be the big fungible tokens? And it's an interesting question, but I don't think I have a good answer yet. Or stable coins, probably.
Oh God, yeah! Don't get me started on stable coins. We probably have different opinions there. Okay, yeah, but that's one of the beautiful things with a permissionless network, right? If somebody else thinks that's a valuable thing to do and that's a useful thing to do, and they're going to make money doing it, then yeah, there they go. So we'll see where all these things go. I love seeing it, right?
Well, I mean, at some point, a lot of people is gonna get rugged on BCH, and they're gonna lose millions to billions. That's just the way of the way life works, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah, if people are going to lose billions on BCH, then at least we know the Cash tokens ecosystem has grown a lot.
Yeah, I know, right?
Because
currently lose billions. Oh God.
Yeah, the amount of money involved currently in the Cash tokens ecosystem is very tiny. I think the biggest amount of money that I've seen is the Peitaka fundraising. They raised 100K for their venture in the Philippines, or for their company. So I'm quite excited for what they will build. but it's not like the Polygon ecosystem, for example, where there's millions floating around for developers. So
Yeah, I've become a little bit cynical about those millions floating around, because I used to think they were just plain old millions floating around, but I started to realize that a lot of those millions are pretty circular, right? The millions are to some degree conjured from thin air, along with the tokenomics of some particular project. But
Well, I
yeah,
mean, well, I mean, it's not necessarily that way. What you can you can build a loan protocol and then set the loan terms yourself, and you print some stuff, you put it in there, and then voila, you transform fake your circular fake millions into real millions, and then you get people to hold your bag. That's how it works. Yeah, that's also why everyone wants loan protocols. Yeah.
hey Matthew, I actually a quick aside. There's Jerry from Bitcoin Bay in the audience, and I have been doing my best to add him as a speaker. He was asking to speak. I don't know if it's going to work. I've like done it repeatedly, and I'm not somehow he's not getting up on the speaker list. But Jerry, I'm trying to get you on here, so I'll keep trying to do that. But in the meantime, Matthew, I was writing a tweet here, just trying to provide the audience with some documentation for what we're talking about. When we were talking about the entrepreneurs and what to do, oh, there he is. Hey, Jerry, if you could mute for a minute. So, Matthew, what would you say, like, what would you summarize your advice to people who want to be entrepreneurs? And I don't mean the traditional entrepreneur of start a company, but, somebody who wants to accomplish something, thinks it's important, and wants to collect resources and people and a team or whatever it is to work on something. What would be your advice? The first one you said was team up, find complementary talents to your own. What would be the kind of summary of the other things that you would recommend to an entrepreneur like that?
Yeah, I think it's also good to get quick feedback from people, so you know what you're doing is actually valuable, because oftentimes it's not easy to know. So, for example, for the Cash Ninjas, I think our project start to finish was 3 months. So, this is, if you commit to something and you want to build something out in 1 year and a half, this is way more uncertainty and risk that you're taking on yourself. Whereas if you know that in 3 months your first income should already be there, then you can start building out and expanding from that point. Whereas if you have something that's far off in the future where you don't know, then it's even harder to predict what your revenues would be. So,
oh my God, yeah.
I guess my advice would be start like incrementally building, and I would try to have something that you can ship, or some product that you can start with as soon as possible.
That's a great one. Also, I've added that to my list. Anything else?
So what I try to do is not try to reinvent the wheel, because there has been a lot of experimentation in crypto already, and a bunch of things have failed. So I think if something has succeeded on another chain, like for example, collectible NFTs are just a popular concept, like them or not. So I think that's a less risk thing to try. Like the first NFT project on Cash tokens knew that it was less risky than trying a totally new ID on Cash tokens, right? So the tech itself is not a risk per se. It's more, I think the use case is where the risk is. So for example, I think ICOs on Cash tokens will also be tried out, because the ICO concept is just popular. So this chain doesn't matter too much. But for example, if you want to build out recurring payments infrastructure, I would be hesitant, because I think this would take a lot of time and technical effort, but then the first revenue might be slow, and it's not something that we see that's very popular on other chains. So I think some technologies will just have to come when we're more mature and we're in a later stage of development, whereas now it just might be too early. Or for example, if you want to build out vault technology, want to build out very secure covenant wallets, but I don't think currently there is a real market and business use case, whereas it would be super interesting technically. So you also need to make a kind of hard line of these are interesting technical projects which would improve the space, and these are like business opportunities where you can actually have some sustained income.
Oh, that's so good. That's going to be a clip, 100%. We're going to make a short out of that for sure. Thank you so much for that advice.
So somebody needs to build the flip starter that spits out tokens. That's basically an ICO.
Yeah. I love it when people ask about that. They're like, "Hey, can you add tokens to Flipstarter?" I'm like, "Yes, but not under my name." So let's do that in a different way. And now there's right BCH House. Actually, I don't even know how to pronounce the name. It's like BC House. BCH.
BCH. House. Yeah.
BC House. I don't know how to say it, but
I saw it.
House.
I haven't.
What is it? BC House.fly.dev. bchouse.fly.dev. You have to have an invite code to join it. But yeah, Sahid has actually implemented a new version of Flipstarter, right? A smart contract version of
Sploit was telling me to join. It's so awesome that he built out this smart contract version because I did some initial work, but then I never really took it anywhere. So it was, I love to see that he picked it up and actually pushed it over the finish line into something useful.
Isn't it one of those amazing things where you get to a point that, wait, I can't keep up with everything? I absolutely love that feeling where it's like, oh, I actually don't know what's going on everywhere. There's so many people doing different things that it's hard to keep up. Let me take a break here. Jerry, are you there? I'm not sure what it was you wanted to talk about. What is it that you're wanting to say?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. Just a slight tangent on the CashScript side. I think with the advanced transaction setup, you can now basically just control the input UTXOs coming in, and just essentially lock out the output so that, however you design it, as long as you're just accepting the inputs, it should be able to effectively act something like a flip starter. But I just wanted to say, thanks so much for just having me here, and especially Matthew. I do remember us having a conversation on Telegram, and it was really good to see that you actually managed to implement a cash token minting system using CashScript as well. So that's really cool to see. I want to touch on the flip starter stuff. Because right now, for us at Bitcoin Bay, we are looking at one of the new Cardano rounds of funding. And the way they do it is that essentially they just select specific times for the entire community to be able to vote on which projects to fund and which ones to not fund. And I think that, there's something to that where not necessarily forcing people to, concentrate all their efforts, but giving that kind of opportunity to basically market the project and ideas that's going on in the space, so that maybe, because I know for the protocol upgrades, the BCH stuff, we do them once every year or so. So maybe we could do something like once every 2 years or once half a year or something like that, right? Where for all the different project ideas that everyone has, we can just say, hey, come together, put all the ideas here, put your submissions in, and we'll just promote the shit out of everyone all at the same time. I think that could be a good idea.
I'd love to see that.
That requires having a treasury. We don't.
Well, no, it doesn't require having a treasury, right? It requires having an entrepreneur. We're talking about a decentralized network entrepreneur, right? Not a
so imagine
entrepreneur, like an entrepreneur to take the idea and say, hey, it would make a lot of sense and it would be more effective and more interesting and more engaging to do all kinds of project funding discussions at the same time. And obviously that wouldn't be for Bitcoin Cash, right? That would be for my platform, whoever the entrepreneur is.
So,
I've got a platform and I'm going to make it available at this point in time with these discussions and these features and these social media aspects to it. I would love to see that. I think Sahid might have that.
I think I think the main thing is that, it's everything that you just described, but instead of having everything spread out throughout the year, like all
Yeah,
we
yeah.
really need is just concentrate the marketing efforts, right? Whoever is going to donate or like, throw money to all these flip starters, they're going to do that anyways. All I'm saying is that, like in terms of marketing all the different projects and ideas, it's a lot easier to do it all at once and make a big show of it rather than, like having it spread throughout the year and like be barely noticeable to the broader audience.
Or both, right? Of course, both is what actually would happen. So yeah, I would love to see that. So what that requires is for the audience and Jerry, for you too, is maybe you know already, but let me just say it for the audience. It would require an entrepreneur to say, hey, this marketing idea to have, or whatever, however they perceive it, it would be really smart to have all this fundraising and crowdfunding go on in a more organized way, in a more maybe competitive environment, or just more organized, and with more of a marketing push, like a combined marketing push for the whole set of projects, and more curation going on, more uh, whatever it is that entrepreneur would identify. These are all the things that would be better and would be valuable for people. And somehow they would have an angle that makes money for them to provide that service and organization and effort. And they would have to just execute it. That's it. And anybody could do that. And I think Sahid might actually be able to do that with his BCH house .fly .dev that he's testing out. It's possible that he could organize something like that. I'd love to see it. And you're saying, Jerry, from your perspective, Bitcoin Bay, right? That you'd rather see something more engaging like that, where you get more visibility as a proposer, as a campaigner, and overall, it's going to draw more attention and more likelihood to get something funded. Is that's the angle you're
Yeah,
coming at,
like
right?
ultimately, like for us, like we started in 2014 before Ethereum came out and stuff in Toronto, and like I've had the very privileged pleasure of actually meeting Vitalik when he was showing off the beta versions of Ethereum before even the launch. So I definitely have gone through and seen a lot of like the development paths that they had there. And one of the questions that, like throughout all the years that we've been having meetups and community events and stuff like that, is that, people always ask me, it's like, why have I basically gone all in on Bitcoin Cash? And fundamentally, it's like, it's not necessarily for the price, right? It's kind of like, the way I kind of like think about it, even if Bitcoin price goes down to like zero, I would love to see, like the technology, like all the overall adoption having grown exponentially, right? So that, by the time it does go to zero, it really just means there's something better for us to, actually be using. So, in that aspect, like what I really wanted to see, and this is part of, like seeing through all the ICOs and the NFT crazes and all the other whatever, right? Is that, like for a lot of people, it's, really just about the money. But sometimes we kind of forget that the technology itself is really supposed to bring freedom and access to everyone who couldn't get it before. So like we're not really maxis. A lot of people assume we're like Bitcoin maxis, and they're like shocked to discover we talk about all these other things. But yeah, it's like how do we actually push this adoption to not just people in crypto, which there's quite a lot right now, but also to the broader audience, right? Like the general public that really couldn't care about any of the infighting, the tribalisms, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, for
And I
sure.
think like the one thing that I really like about Bitcoin Cash is that like one, it obviously does follow through with the quote unquote Satoshi and like the white paper and stuff like that. But like the whole kind of like ethos in the community has also been following through with it, right, throughout the years. Um, and I think that that's something that's vastly different than let's say something in Bitcoin, where like we had the I think his name was Domo, the creator of BRC20, come out for an ordinal slash BRC20 talk. We've had like interactions with some of the local Bitcoin only. It's kind of funny. The Bitcoin only maxi groups, they tend to like a lot of infighting, and so recently they just had like a splinter group like shave off about half of their members. But it's that kind of like complete disunity and like not even supporting like new experimental and accidental technologies like ordinals and BRC20 and stuff like that. That it really just makes all this broader adoption kind of like moot and pointless. So yeah,
I see.
that's basically what I'm looking at.
That's cool. Yeah. So we'd like to make I mean, I think it would be great to see what you were talking about. And just on the topic of the technology, one of the great things from my perspective about Bitcoin Cash is that people who are building on it, as a general rule, don't lose sight that the technology is in service of achieving a goal. The technology doesn't exist for its own purposes. And the goal is, like Matthew said, some form of, however you frame it, P2P electronic cash for the world, for as many people as possible. So yeah, I'm always proud of seeing that in Bitcoin Cash, that people don't lose that vision. They keep it, and they understand that the technology is in the service of doing something. The network is in the service of a purpose. So yeah, thank you, Jerry. I want to get back to Matthew, and on this topic of decentralized funding and decentralized crowdfunding. Matthew, before we finish up, I wanted to ask you to cover your Cashonize flip starter and tell us what it is you're trying to accomplish with it and where it's going to go.
Oh yeah, okay. Thanks. So Cashonize was started like almost a year ago now. It was started, as I told, as a quick way to get started with the mainnet.js library and make a first Cash tokens demo, like just proof of concept. And then it grew from there. And for the longest time, as some might remember, it didn't even have a unique name. It was just my Cash tokens web wallet.
On Netlify? I think it was on Netlify, right?
Yeah, on Netlify, on the subdomain. I didn't have a proper domain name. So it was a long road, and that was all like a hobby project. I want to take it more serious now. There's a bunch of features that I want to add. There's a whole technology overhaul that I want to do. So currently it's written in vanilla JavaScript, so no framework used. And I want to switch over to Vue.js, which is way easier to build with. So in the future, it will be easier to add new features, and people who want to add to the project, the code base will be way more organized into components. And I want to add TypeScript, so the wallet becomes safer to work with. So this is the code rewrite. Then a bunch of features I want to add, and I want to speed up the wallet because it's not super well designed. It was first and foremost to get something quick out of the door, like a working demo. But now I want to make it into a good user-friendly product. So the loading speeds need to be improved. So there's work behind the curtain. For example, the metadata, it doesn't need to load incrementally from the chain graph server. It can just fetch it all at once, like batch the requests to the BCMR indexer built by Peitaka, things like this. I also want to do a dynamic loading of token metadata. If someone sends you a token, it automatically goes and checks which metadata does this token hold, because currently it only checks when you refresh. Like this is not a good UX, so people shouldn't need to refresh to see that they received a certain token with a certain name. But the token would pop up, but just not with the metadata. And there's a bunch of features I want to add. Like if you want to transport all your NFTs from one wallet to another, there should be a send all NFTs button. Also, I want to add support for easy support in the UI for having a reserved supply. So if you're a token creator and you want to keep your tokens at the out UTXO, so to mark them as reserved supply, then this is not currently possible with the UI, but it's something I would like to add. I would also like to add support for GIF NFTs, like GIFs, or MP4, so you can have 3D objects and things like that. This would make the NFTs more unique. And then last but not least, I want to make an Android app from the Cashonize wallet, because currently it's not that easy that you on mobile need to navigate to your browser first, then type in cashonize.com, and only then can you start using your wallet. So I want to make it into a native app like an app you can download from the Google Play Store. Then you can receive notifications like built in, and you can have some features like camera scans, which will work nicer than they do in browser, things like that. So these are the main things I want to add with the Flip Starter. And currently half of the target has been pledged already. So I think it runs for another week. So I'm watching close to see how that goes. But I'm very excited to continue the work on Cashonize and to make it into a more finished product.
I'm excited to see it. And for the listeners, go to, let me get the correct address again, flipstarter.cashonize.com. And that's also listed in the Twitter thread. I've posted it in there. And this is one of those things. It's a signal. Money, as Bitcoin Cash Altist and many other people say, money is a signal at its root. That's kind of a base summary of it. It's a signal of what's valuable. What do you want more of? What do you want to see in the world? And that's something that I would like to see, all of those things you said. I'm looking forward to that being a successful Flip Starter. So good luck on that. I don't think you need luck. I think it's going to be fine. And I don't think there's any question about it. So
thank you.
It's fantastic to see. All right. That's great. So I think we're probably going to wrap up here in a minute. It's coming up on an hour, but let me ask if there's anybody else in the audience who had questions or something they wanted to ask about. And then of course, also, is there anything? Jonathan was having some kind of heavy storms that cut him off. So he had to go like in a flurry of static. He's like, I can't. He's gone. So he's out. But was there anything you wanted to cover before we wrap up?
I just want to recommend that people go to his Flipstarter and fund this guy. Like if you ever want to fund anything, this is current. This is the thing like today. So yeah,
nice. Yeah, like I said in the description of the space, right? The many faces of Cashonize. What Mathieu has done with little resources and little time has been really impressive. I've been very impressed. Obviously it's not perfect, right? We have so many more things as a whole ecosystem to improve, but what Mathieu has accomplished with Cashonize in a short time has been pretty impressive. And together with Pat, like Mathieu pointed out, now working with Pat and the things that Pat has done also has contributed to this. So yeah, it's very impressive. And I think the track record speaks for itself if you're paying attention, and we're paying attention. So if you're not sure whether it's valuable or not, it is. Mathieu, is there anything else you wanted to talk about or to bring up before we wrap up?
Maybe one last thing, because it was something Jerry brought up with the Bitcoin Bay meetups. I would also encourage everyone to try to get involved in some kind of cryptocurrency scene locally, even if it's events or organize a meetup, because now I do where I live, I do the general crypto and Bitcoin and crypto meetup. So a bunch of people join, even a PhD student who studies like for a thesis, for a PhD thesis, blockchain technology. So you meet some very interesting people by organizing, and you become like kind of a nexus for networking of some kind. So people are also then becoming interested in, why are you as the organizer so interested in Bitcoin Cash? And I can just talk about cash tokens. So I think this will relate to Jerry, where people ask him what brought him into BCH or why cash tokens are interesting, or because as an organizer, of course, you should be inclusive. You hear a lot of perspectives. So if you have a different perspective, you can add something interesting to the conversation. And we are quite unique from Ethereum or Bitcoin. So we have our own like different narrative to tell. So I think people find it quite interesting.
Yeah, and I hope people won't be ashamed, right? Because it's very easy to be ashamed of the crypto ecosystem in general. It's a mess. but I don't think there's any need for anyone in BCH to be ashamed. There's so much to be proud of, and there really is a meaningful goal behind all the stuff that we're working on. However it is that you frame it personally, the goal that we're aiming for is meaningful and useful in human long-term terms. So yeah, go out there and don't worry about it, and understand what's important to you and help other people see it. Yeah, I'm with you on that. All right. Well, that's a good hour for us. I've been told that we talk too much. I talk too much, maybe. So we're going to try to keep it now to an hour. So that was a great one. I really appreciate your time, Mathieu, and look forward to seeing your Flipstarter decentralized crowdfunding completed, and looking forward to the apps and the utility that you build on the Cashonize wallet. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
All right.
Thank you for
Okay.
coming.
Thanks. Yeah. All right. Take care, everybody. It's good to talk with you. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.